Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I have jumped on the bandwagon of the My Eyeshadow Palette tag. This was created by Samantha March and Allie Glines here on YouTube. So this is where you have a list of your favorite, your oldest, etc. eyeshadows, and you just go ahead and show off these eyeshadow palettes. So I thought we could do that for today's video. But before we go any further, let's take a second to grab our iced coffee or a hot coffee. Let's take a sip and let's get started. So I've seen this tag circulate here on YouTube for a few weeks, and I thought it could be fun to just lay out all of these palettes here and dig through the list. Okay, so for the first question, it is show us your newest palette. So for me, it's this Dior Color Games palette here. This is number 287 Dive. This is the most beautiful blue palette for summer. It does look like a swimming pool that you want to dive right into. I just did one video on this and I'm already in love. I just think it's so beautiful. I was drawn into this palette by those two beautiful blue colors, and they do not disappoint. I have played around with the other colors off camera, and do not worry, I will go ahead and create more looks for you guys, but even though this is new to me, I love it. Okay, and now we are moving on to our oldest palette. So this one made me laugh because this is the Too Faced Naked Eye palette, and this is how I open it because it is in fact broken. That's how old it is. But this palette I wore so much. It's the Naked Eye palette, so you technically have neutral eye looks with a smoky eye here at the bottom. But there are some shades in here that I truly wish companies would recreate, or at least Too Faced perhaps, because they are magnificent. Especially this lovely pinky pearlescent shade. It is the most flattering pinky champagne color for a lid. I do not wear this palette anymore because it is 1,000 years old and I don't think it's hygienic to wear it anymore, but I used to wear this. I think I bought this when I was still in university, and I graduated in 2011. That's how alarmingly old this palette is. I don't remember when I bought it. I just remember that I absolutely loved it. If I'm not mistaken, I think this also traveled with me to France when I lived there. So this is a very well-loved palette. Okay, so now we're moving on to the most expensive eyeshadow palette, and as a disclaimer, I don't usually buy huge eyeshadow palettes. I normally stick to quads or 5 shadow palettes, sometimes 9, but that's really the maximum. So for me to find my most expensive palette, I looked to Tom Ford because, as it turns out, a Tom Ford quad is actually more expensive than the Chanel 9 shadow palettes. Who knew? So as a default, this is my most expensive palette. I just picked this one. Any Tom Ford palette would do. So this one here is called Orchid Haze. It's really just a lovely neutral mauve purple color. It's a lovely palette, and also one of my more expensive ones. And now we are moving on to my most affordable palette. So if you will remember, a few years ago, the YouTuber Emily Noel 83 came out with a few palettes with the company Makeup Revolution. I bought her palettes just to support her. And so one of my most affordable palettes is actually from her collection. This is the Makeup Revolution Emily Edit. This is the Emily Needs. And I believe this is on the Makeup Revolution International website, and it was on sale for about €8, which is around $12 Canadian. So this is definitely my most affordable palette. I bought it simply to support Emily Noel 83. I had every intention of digging in and using the palette, but as you can see, I have barely used it, barely touched it. I don't even know why I bought it. I just bought it to support Emily, but that was it. And yeah, this is it here. Okay, moving on. Now we have my most everyday palette. And for me right now, my most everyday palette has to be this Tom Ford Suspicion. It is just the most beautiful warm-toned palette. If you love a JLo Glow warm toned eyeshadow palette, this is for you. All four shadows have a lovely satin finish, but I find that they're very wearable. You have lovely gold tones, more yellow, a nice deep brown. It's just really easy, and I find for me, with my eye color, my skin tone, etc., it is super flattering. And this color combination looks good with any clothes that I wear, any makeup. You know, I can wear a nude lip or a bright bold. It doesn't really clash with anything. It just sort of fits in with whatever I have. So this is like my go-to, no-brainer, no fuss eyeshadow palette. All right, moving on to my most colorful eyeshadow palette and what I'm wearing today. This is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Riviera palette. And this is one of the exceptions to my rule. It's not really a rule, I just prefer smaller palettes. But I saw this one come out a few years ago and I just fell in love. It's just so bright and bold and beautiful, and I don't often wear like super neon rainbow colors, but when I do, I often dip into this one here. It provides me with all the fun rainbow bright makeup I could think of, and I don't know, I just woke up this morning, I pulled this out and I was like, this is what I want. I want bright, flashy eye makeup for some reason. I don't know. But yeah, it's really pretty. I love the really pigmented matte colors, and also the shimmer colors are to die for. It's just really, really fun. I think that's the best word to describe this, is a fun palette. Okay, moving on to my smallest palette. So since I have a preference for smaller quads, I went with the palette that had technically the least amount of product. And for me, this is this Chantecaille Hummingbird quad here in the Cool Tone collection. So this one here technically is only 2 grams of products, so it's a little bit smaller than my other quads, and so that's how I got around the rule. So this came out in the spring collection this year. It is this really beautiful purple quad here. I love the colors, I love the finish, they're just beautiful, and there's a iridescent shadow in the quad that just adds so much oomph and pizzazz that I just love it so much. And let's be honest, this packaging is to die for. I didn't even realize until now how little product you have in the quad here. So this is 2 grams, and the Tom Ford one, for example, is 6 grams. So that's quite a difference. Okay, moving on to the biggest palette that I have. This is the Emily Noel Edit, the Wants palette. Now, I definitely got more use out of this palette here. It's just more fun. There's more color selection. It's brighter. It's funny because to me, this was more practical than the Needs palette. This to me just had a little bit of everything that I wanted. Even though I do have a preference for luxury makeup, I bought this to support Emily Noel 83. And this palette actually wasn't bad. You know, it's definitely not the same quality as Tom Ford or Chanel, etc. But it wasn't bad. And I have this beautiful palette here, and it is technically my largest eyeshadow palette. All right, moving on to my palette with the best memory. This is the Chanel Lumière et Opulence. This came out with the holiday collection last year. Now, I picked this up in Paris in Le Marais, which is a very chic neighborhood. My husband and I were on vacation in Paris last fall, and we were just walking around being tourists, and I saw this Chanel boutique. So I went in, and it turns out it was the biggest beauty boutique in Paris. So I did some damage. I picked up this collection here. And I then went on to basically wear this most of my stay in Paris, but not only in Paris, because we went to Normandy as well. We went to Le Pays de la Loire, and we returned to Paris afterwards. So basically for 3 weeks, I wore mostly this palette here, and it just makes me think of that lovely time we had in France, eating all the food and drinking all the wine. All right, now we are moving on to a palette that is worth the hype. So this is the Dior Party in Colors palette here. This came out in the holiday collection last year as well, and I also bought this when I was in Paris too. So I know not everyone is inclined to wear rainbow colors on their eyes, I get it. However, if you do like these types of colors, I highly recommend this one so much. The formula on these shadows is Peak Dior eyeshadow. This formula that they have for these satin finish shadows is truly phenomenal. And the colors that they provide are just so beautiful, and you can mix them together and they just create such beautiful looks. I like to go into either the pink, the blue, or the green individually, and then go into either the gold or the silver for a touch of like sparkle and highlight. It's really simple, it's really beautiful, and I just love it so much. I think the formula on these shadows is breathtaking. This satin finish is so buttery, it's so easy to apply and to blend. For me, this is like one of my favorite Dior palettes in a long time. Okay, now we are moving on to an eyeshadow palette that is not worth the hype. So for me, this would have to be my Pat McGrath. This is the Eye Ecstasy eyeshadow and mascara kit. I bought this, I want to say last spring or last summer. And I don't know, I couldn't fall in love. I really want to drink the Pat McGrath Kool-Aid. I really do. But this palette didn't do it for me. I found that the mattes were chalky. I don't know, they just did not blend well. The shimmer colors were pretty, but just overall, I didn't find that the mattes were easy to use at all. Like, just a lot of work to get what I wanted. And for all the hype that I had heard about Pat McGrath, I was a little let down. So I'm definitely open to suggestions about Pat McGrath eyeshadows if you have any eyeshadow palettes from Pat McGrath that are on the smaller scale. Because again, I'm not interested in buying a 24 eyeshadow palette. I don't even know if she has something that big, but I'm just saying, if she has like a quad, maybe something with 6 shadows that you love, leave a comment, let me know. But this one here didn't do it for me, so yeah. Okay, so now it's my favorite palette from my favorite brand. Can you guess what it is? This is the Chanel Les Neuf Ombre No. 2 Quintessence. Now, I know when you first look at this, you might think that looks a bit intimidating. You have that red, you have that blue, but you do have some really lovely softer eyeshadows that are perfect for every day. I find that this palette is just so versatile. It has just like some basic shimmer colors for every day, just like a wash of color. You get your darker colors here. You can go with something more fun down here. You kind of get a bit of everything, and that's what I love about this palette so much. And last but not least, we have my most used palette. This also is from Chanel, and this is number 268 Candeur et Expérience. I have owned this for a few years now, and I still love it just as much as I did when I first bought it. I think that this is just such a perfect palette for every day. Yes, there is a brighter red that is a bit intimidating, but the other 3 are just like the easiest colors you could imagine. I think that anyone can wear these 3 colors here. You have a beautiful transition shade that you can actually put all over the lid for the most soft, natural looking, no makeup look. And then you do have 2 other browns here. This one here is so beautiful and so soft. And then you have a more chocolatey, rich brown. It's just such a perfect palette. If you want something really neutral and really matte, this is just it. This is it. This is wonderful. Okay, I think this about does it for my video, for my eyeshadow palette tag. Let me know down in the comments what you guys thought of today's video. What do you guys think of the tag? If you want to, feel free to do a quick little roundup of your favorite eyeshadow palette, your oldest eyeshadow palette, the one with the best memory, etc. Like, just feel free to participate in this tag. It's so fun. If you guys are new to my channel, I talk about nothing but luxury beauty. I do lots of reviews and tutorials, and whenever I get a collection, I will create several different eyeshadow looks with the same collection, so that way you guys at home really get a sense on how to use up your makeup. And I have a new series on my channel called Beauty History, where I dive into the history and legacy of different makeup brands and fashion houses. So if any of that sounds interesting, please subscribe. Okay, I think this is all I have for you guys for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed all the swatches. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.